going from thoughts to words?
I think this was one of the most revealing things to me because I grew up in a positive thinking environment. My mother got me heavily involved in New Thought when I was very young, and positive thinking, and had me reading a lot of these books. And so affirmations for me by age 16 were just normal. I thought everybody used affirmations because that was one of the basic elements of the religion that I grew up in our home. I find now that a lot of people don't understand the power of words.
Yeah.
I thought everybody understood this.
No, you're very unusual.
Yeah, I had very wonderful parents and very well educated, and they insisted that I affirm only positive, uplifting things. But for those people who weren't brought up in that kind of environment, it's important to understand on this 2,500-year-old continuum, you start thinking things, and as you're saying, Eric, I love that regrooving the brain. That's a perfect example of what we're doing. But after a while, you begin to start verbalizing your beliefs. Now, a lot of people fail here in networking because when you verbalize these large objectives and goals and dreams, whatever your attainment objectives are, once you start talking about them, there will be a significant percentage of the population that literally just can't buy it, don't want to talk about it, can't see it. And that's where some failure occurs in our business. Because we, as human beings, I feel like we're more interested in impression management than in wealth. You know, it's more important that we borrow our way into upper middle class, and it doesn't matter as long as our friends all are impressed by us. It doesn't matter the fact that you're going to be rejected once you think the right thoughts and you start affirming them. That's what words are. You're actually talking to people about your goals and objectives. Yeah. But you have to remember, half the population is not cognitively hardwired to be entrepreneurs, and they don't get it when you start. The trick is you and I are not general managers of the universe. And the other thing is, frankly, we can't control people's impressions. No. They may talk about Mark Yarnell because they need something to visit about at a cocktail party, but when our friends and family and the people we love most put their head down on their pillow at night, they're only thinking of one person, numero uno. Yeah. So what I say to people is, when you start talking, when you go from thoughts to words, expect a certain amount of rejection, a certain amount of negativity, but don't let that keep you from exercising this step on the continuum. Continue to talk about it.
Plant seeds. It's so interesting, the idea of your thoughts lead to words. And words bring some rejection, bring some judgment, bring some, your world is going to say, who do you think you are, saying these type of words?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I find that's just very, very interesting that you point out the important step is expect that other people aren't going to be accepting your words up front. Expect that they're going to be a little judgmental about it. Expect a little rejection. Expect to be maybe a little bit lonely until you find some new friends that speak the same words that you're speaking. It might be a little bit lonely in that transition, and that's okay. It's okay for you as you're growing. If other people choose not to grow, then then that's okay. You're not leaving them behind. They're staying behind. I heard a study once that they did a study of prisoners, and they tested their vocabulary. And based upon their vocabulary, it was so low, they had no way to communicate. Their vocabulary was so low that they acted out all these emotions in all kinds of negative ways. But as their vocabulary raised, so did the chances of not being in a bad situation. So the vocabulary is so much more important than I think most people realize.
Yeah, and actually executing the vocabulary, actually talking to people with the expectation that there are going to be some people who can't accept it, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. What I want people to understand about our industry is there's no ceiling, there are no caps, there's no bar limitations on anybody.
Right.
But it's critical that you understand one of the byproducts of thinking and talking big is that inherent rejection. So what I like to tell people is forget about impression management. You cannot manage. Everybody gets to think what they want.
Right.
You can't manage other people's impression. Forget about that. It's time to rise to your full potential. Providing it for your family is significantly more important than impressing your peers and friends.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So thoughts lead to words. Words are, as that changes, so will your entire universe. And, you know, your little universe will be shaken up for a little while until you start hanging out with people who are saying the same kind of words that you're saying. And then the words lead to actions. So talk about actions.
This is where it starts getting very, very interesting, Eric, in my opinion, because this is the money step. This is where we actually, instead of just talking about what we're going to do, we actually take steps to execute those plans that we think are so great. What I see happen an awful lot is people stay locked into affirmations and positive thinking. It's almost like positive thinking is kind of like a rocking chair. It gives you a lot to do, but it doesn't get you any place. Unless you link the third step, which fascinated me when I read this, to actions. Mm-hmm. Eventually, you've got to stop being stuck getting started. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you the number of people I've met in our industry who can think right and talk big, but they're stuck getting started. Mm-hmm. No. Eventually, you have to execute the steps, and you have to be prepared, in my estimation, for the inherent challenges that come along with making this kind of money. You know, Eric, Economics 101 dictates that the less people are willing to do a particular task, the more and the less experienced they are to be able to do it, the more they're paid. I mean, anybody can be a greeter at a big box store and wear a happy smiley face. That's why it only pays minimum wage. Mm-hmm. It only stands to reason if you've got a chance to make $50 or $100 or $500,000 a month, that means there are very few people willing to take action necessary to create that. Otherwise, everybody would be making that.
Right.
So understand, you can't just sit in one spot and think positive thoughts and then number two, affirm divine order. God is not some magic playground supervisor in the sky who can't wait to give you from this entire cosmos of mail order catalog toys whatever you want by conveyor belt if you think right or if you affirm the truth. This is where the Lotus Code differs from a lot of these philosophies that basically depend on thinking in words. Mm-hmm. You've got to take action to back up the words. And what I tell people is, if you can only begin working an hour a day, during that hour, be professional, don't be amateur.
Yeah.
But take actions that actually will compensate you.
A lot of people get stuck in personal development. A lot of people watch networkmarketingpro.com every single day. That is their discipline, and they're thinking about it, and they're excited, but then they don't take any action that day because they're stuck in this personal development loop that they need to break out of and go face their fear, get out of this analysis situation, get out of this avoidance behavior, and go take some action, whatever the appropriate action is for the company that they're involved with. And like I say, even if it's a little bit a day, like you said, that 1 hour a day, if it's consistent, then you have a basis to build on. Then you can get to the fourth step, where you start to make it part of your DNA instead of just a one-time action. So,
absolutely. And you've always emphasized that. You've always said that.
Right.
You're giving people, and this is what I've always been amazed with your approach. It's not about how can I pitch or sell or interest people in more positive philosophies. It's about, okay, here's how to think, but take action.
Right.
So anybody who follows you carefully knows that you're about the process of step 3, which is acting on these beliefs. And I appreciate that.